Who the hell beats Merab Dvalishvili? So Merab just proved a lot of things this weekend. He proved that he is the greatest bantamweight of all time, no question, with a resume of Sean O'Malley twice now, a former champion, Umar Nurmagomedov, who was once at the time an undefeated Nurmagomedov, Henry Cejudo, a former double champion, Petr Yan, a former champion, and Jose Aldo, one of the greatest of all time and also a former champion, and did this back to back to back to back to back. He also proved that he is still improving, even at the top of his game, with his first submission win in the UFC via a ninja choke from a north-south position. And finally, he proved that not jerking off and not smoking weed anymore does jack shit when your opponent's boxing has improved and his cardio is still otherworldly. Merab Dvalishvili might be the most dominant, unstoppable champion today, as pretty much every other champion has a legitimate threat to their reign. JDM has the pound-for-pound best right now, Islam Makhachev moving up and threatening a potential championship reign for the young champion. Dricus du Plessis is set to face his toughest threat in Khamzat Chimaev in a couple months. Magomed Ankalaev has Yuri Prochazka once finals week is over for Yuri. John Jones has a threat so legitimate to his quote-unquote reign that he's not even fighting him and moved to Thailand to potentially retire. Moving back down, an aging Volkanovski probably has young guys like Movsar Evloev to deal with once he gets a title shot. And Alexandre Pantoja has actually had an underrated title reign over the flyweight division, but he's been in wars with the contenders, and though he's gotten it done pretty much every single time, he's looked beatable. The thing is with Merab is that he's not only beating the guys on this resume, he's demolishing them. And outside of the first 2 rounds against Umar, he's pretty much won every single round against legendary names. So with Merab Dvalishvili beating Sean O'Malley a second time, and this time even easier now, we have to ask the question, who the hell beats Merab? Is he truly the most unstoppable champion today? Alright, before that, I need some energy because I don't got that Merab cardio. So a word from our sponsor. I do a lot in the day. I have to edit videos, I have to code, and typically I start off my days with coffee. But recently, I've not been liking coffee all too much just because of the caffeine, and it gives me jitters and kind of messes up my sleep at the end of the day. So this is where today's sponsor, Mudwater, comes in to solve all my morning problems. So Mudwater is a coffee alternative that is just jam-packed with a lot of things that can help you with focus and energy without the negatives of coffee, such as jitters and having a bad sleep. Specifically, you got lion's mane for focus, cordyceps for energy, and chaga and reishi to help you support your immunity. It's also got 0 sugars, and you can take a look at the other nutritional facts there. Specifically, this masala chai that they sent me tastes exactly like a chai I would usually get at a coffee shop with a little mix of chocolate because of the cacao. So if you want to upgrade your morning like I have, you can click the link in the description below, or you can scan the QR code that's on screen now. If you use my code TJLovesFights, you can get 15% off your starter kit plus a free frother. So go ahead and use, again, my code TJLovesFights to get all those good discounts. Thank you, Mudwater, for sponsoring this video. All right, taking a quick look at the bantamweight rankings, it looks like there's 3 levels to the weight class. Ranked bantamweights, legit title contenders at the top 3, and then Merab. The problem with the power levels between these groups of bantamweights is that it seems like there's a large discrepancy between them. The ranked bantamweights pretty much get shit on by the top 3 contenders. Corey Sandhagen is really fun to watch, but he couldn't get past Petr Yan or Umar Nurmagomedov, and probably never will. Then the thing is, Song Yadong has been beat by Petr Yan as well as Corey Sandhagen. And in a similar situation, Davison Figueiredo also got beat by Petr Yan and Corey. It seems like no one can get past the immediate hump of the next group of guys above them in the rankings, meaning the top 3 has been pretty much locked out, and then there's Merab, who is so far ahead of the top 3 that I find it super hard to believe that anyone new can beat Merab Dvalishvili. So when the camera pointed to Corey Sandhagen during Merab's post-fight interview, I literally said, get the fuck out of here. I understand that Corey is the next best contender outside of the top 3, all guys Merab has demolished, and everyone loves a new name fighting for the belt, but come on. I know MMA math doesn't work all the time, but if Petr Yan and Umar both decisively beat Corey, and Petr Yan got ran through by Merab, and Umar pretty much gassed out in the last 3 rounds against Merab, what makes anyone think that Corey even stands a chance against Merab? Corey's takedown defense was really impressive against Umar. I will give him that. But then he got cooked on the feet by Umar and eventually lost. Merab is not as technical as Umar on the striking, but it doesn't matter. Merab's boxing pace, non-stop shots, and relentless pace in general is going to be way too much for Corey. If Corey couldn't balance striking and takedown defense against Umar, he's going to have a tough time with Merab, who is going to challenge Corey the same way at 1,000 times speed and 1,000 times volume. Corey, being the striker that he is, always has a puncher's chance like Sean O'Malley, and I honestly think his takedown defense and grappling in general, shown in his Umar fights and other fights, have looked better than what Sean has shown, but a puncher's chance is still extremely low against Merab. Sean couldn't find anything in his 2 fights against Merab, so I doubt that Corey, who's more of a TKO guy than a one-punch KO guy, can find anything to knock out Merab. So with Corey having a slim chance to beat Merab, that probably means everyone else below him in the rankings have a next to 0% chance to beat Merab, which of course means we have to look back at the top 3. Petr Yan has been making a solid comeback with 2 very good wins over Song Yadong and Davison Figueiredo, where he again showed that he has an insanely deep bag, showing great striking and great grappling sequences. He also called for Sean O'Malley to get back in line, which was hilarious, and I do think he's coming back for the title with some vengeance in him. And on paper, you would think Petr Yan has a good chance, right? He has some of the crispiest boxing and striking in general, and he does have grappling prowess, showing that he can initiate some grappling exchanges and hold his own against some great grapplers like Aljamain Sterling in some instances, but damn. I guess Merab was on a different one when they fought because he got steamrolled. Like, these stats don't even look real. 49 takedown attempts on top of 400 strikes with 200 of those landed is actually stupid. But I will say there is a silver lining to this fight for Petr Yan. He did defend a vast majority of these shots, defending 38 of the 49 attempted takedowns, which is still extremely impressive. If you haven't, I encourage you guys to watch this video. Petr Yan got out of a lot of tough exchanges, and maybe if he was the one putting on the pressure, maybe, just maybe, he would have had a better chance, but it should be a huge plus for Petr Yan that he was able to defend a lot of different looks from Merab. So Petr Yan, even though he did get ran through when he fought Merab, I want to say he approaches this fight differently, and unlike Sean in this rematch, I still think because of Petr Yan's deep bag, he can make the adjustment to make a rematch with Merab very competitive. I think if Petr Yan is a lot more aggressive, mixing up the striking when they're standing, moving forward, and mixing it up with grappling as well, even initiating takedowns, he would find a lot of success. And you know what? This actually worked against Merab, granted for 2 rounds. Umar, by far, still has the highest chances at beating Merab at 135. On this 13-fight win streak, I think he's the only person to have sustained success against Merab. Sure, Merab has gotten caught before, like that one early punch from Henry Cejudo, or that one teep that got Merab's liver in the last round in the first Sean fight, but if we're talking about sustained success, winning against Merab over the course of not 1 but 2 rounds, and having the correct game plan, we're talking about Umar Nurmagomedov in those first 2 rounds. Umar and the Nurmagomedov camp in general had a fantastic game plan of keeping Merab thinking and preventing him from going brain dead and shooting a lot. I said it in this video, so check it out, but Merab operates the best when he doesn't have to think or react to an opponent's game plan. If the only mode he fights at is move forward, box, and shoot, he's practically unstoppable, and most importantly, he reserves a lot of mental energy for decision making. But as soon as you force him to think and get him out of his typical game plan, everything changes. Umar completely switched it up on him, moving forward, throwing a lot of feints, landing hard shots to get Merab's respect and make him really think about when he shoots his shot, and did something no other Merab opponent has really done, which is initiate takedowns and grappling exchanges. Like right here was an amazing sequence from Umar as he defends a Merab takedown, and instead of going back to the center of the octagon and continuing to strike like most Merab opponents, he shot for a takedown himself and actually got it, which added another thing Merab had to think about. It was a perfect game plan that clearly won Umar 2 rounds, but goddamn, the second you give Merab the front foot, it's over. Umar gassed towards the middle of the 3rd, and he looked like he ran a marathon in the 4th, and the 5th was no better. Again, the second you're not on the front foot against Merab, it's practically over. Merab might be the best fighter today that can implement his game plan and do so dominantly. He doesn't think, he doesn't adapt to his opponent. He plows through any fighter of any skill set with the same unstoppable boxing, relentless shots, and pressure. So even though Umar, in my opinion, probably has the best shot to beat Merab in a possible rematch if he paces himself and continues to be on the front foot the entire fight. I also think Merab realizes that he can run through Umar like everyone else. I think a part of Merab in those first 2 rounds gave Umar a ton of respect because of his skill set and had him thinking early, but come round 3 and especially round 4, he realized that a skill set like that can simply not keep up with his pace. So even though Umar probably changes it up in the rematch and paces himself better, I think Merab has also evolved a lot as well, and his pace and aggressiveness might be turned up early, knowing how the last 3 rounds ended last time. So who is realistically beating Merab at 135? Again, everyone in the top 3 has been ran through, and those guys have pretty much easily beaten every other contender. So realistically, probably no one. Basically, you have to have a Petr Yan or Umar Nurmagomedov type bag, and then on top of that, be aggressive, switch up the offensive approaches, and most importantly, sustain that for 5 rounds. And now that Merab has added submission threats to his game, that's another dimension of fighting you have to consider. Meaning, realistically, again, I don't think anybody can do that. I guess some other interesting moves could be Pantoja moving up to fight Merab. On paper, he also has a deep skill set, but I also don't see him having the strength to deal with Merab. He's a jiu-jitsu guy and doesn't have the wrestling and strength of a guy like Umar, so I find it very hard to believe he'll stop the strength and pressure of Merab's wrestling. And say Merab moves up, I think he gets outmatched by a guy like Volk, who is not only super skilled, but has fought at 155 before and has legit lightweight strength. And shit, he's even said it himself that Volk is much better than him. So I honestly don't know what Merab does. He's so good and dominant at 135, but still probably not big enough to go up to 145 and find a lot of success. I think the only move for bantamweight is to have Umar and Petr Yan fight it out, and the winner of that has a rematch with Merab. Both guys have insanely deep bags, mix it up extremely well, and if the division didn't have Merab, both guys are championship material right now. But unfortunately for them, Merab is here, and he's probably going to stay here for a pretty long time. So anyways, what do you guys think about Merab Dvalishvili's reign over the bantamweight division? Is he truly the most unbeatable, unstoppable champion today? And who do you think he fights next? And how well do you think they do against Merab? It's looking like he's steamrolling everybody, and he might retire before he gets beat at the top. But anyways, thank you guys for watching, of course, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.